This is an unusual episode. I am releasing chapter 10 from my second book. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this. I have recently had a bit of an awakening, reckoning, coming to faith moment, or whatever you want to call it. It has been painful and humbling. At the climax of this experience came the date for the release of chapter 10 of this book, Merriment Making, the Guide to Getting Back Your Joy. This chapter is a little different than the others, mostly because I am not as specific with the 1, 2, 3 type tangible steps about how to take action, because the topic of this chapter is magic. And this topic is very personal, so I am allowing the chapter to be personal for me. I hope that by sharing my own personal stories that I can let it be an example or inspiration that it needs to be for anyone who needs it. I decided to share it with people outside of the enrolled students in the program because this message is so important for me right now. And I don't want to be a gatekeeper for it. If this lands with anyone who needs it right now, I am very grateful. This chapter is part of a much greater work that is my second book. And it's not just a book, it is an entire program. It includes journaling, tapping, exercises, and monthly workshops and calls for each chapter. I am incredibly proud of it. And it turns out I made this as much for myself as I made it for anyone else, because as I kind of promised, I am getting back my joy. And the people who not just signed up, but have stayed with the program and done the things, not the work, but the play, have seen tremendous results that I am honored, humbled, and very proud of. If you are interested in learning more, I'd love to invite you into the world of Merriment Making. The program that comes with this book, my membership group, Operation Merriment, and one-on-one coaching are the main ways to work with me at this point. And if you feel like sending some love for the free chapter, you can do that through the link in my Instagram. I am so happy to learn from you. You are my teachers. And if you want to learn from me, how I learned from you, without further ado, Chapter 10. Merriment Making, a Guide to Getting Back Your Joy. Chapter 10. Magic. Everything is interwoven, and the web is holy. Marcus Aurelius. Magic is new action. And so we arrive here to the topic of magic. That juicy, juicy subject, that sensitive subject, the one we can't wait to discuss and sometimes can't wait to get past. There is so much wrapped up in magic. Stigma, expectation, resentment, hope, love, and life. It is everything all at once. We enter the world because of it, but we don't always leave still holding on to it. When beauty exists, we attribute it to magic. When our expectations are shattered, we blame the absence of magic. Magic is when we are open to a new idea, or when we allow ourselves to see something from a new perspective. That's all it is. It's when you're compassionate by putting yourself in someone else's shoes. It's when you allow yourself to play instead of grind for the first time. It's when you finally listen to your instincts. Here's the trick. Something cool happens in conjunction with that new thing. That's how you notice it's magic. There will be a combined result with the new idea, perspective, or action. For example, when you put yourself in someone else's shoes, maybe you see them get a job that day. When you allow yourself to play instead of grind, Maybe you come back and your inbox has a job offer you're really excited about. When you finally listen to your instincts, you find out you avoided a death-defying experience. It might sound like a lot of pressure to have a new action and a new result, but here's the thing. New actions create new results. Magic creates more magic. Remember that sometimes having a new idea or looking at something from a new perspective really might be magic in and of itself. You might blow your own mind by playing devil's advocate, and the knowledge you get from that thought exercise might be the magic in that moment. Very often, though, the only reason you'll notice that magic is happening is because you get the new result. For example, if you come home to the really exciting email in your inbox after an afternoon of playing, your thought process might be, holy crap, I never get these kinds of emails when I'm sitting at my computer all day. Maybe I should go out and play more. Here you're actually letting the magical action speak for the result in a retroactive way. Your body told you to go play, and now your mind is reinforcing why this was a great idea, because you received a magical result. It doesn't matter what order things happen in or how you understand them. All that matters is once you notice magic is happening, you continue to open yourself up to it. My goal with this chapter is to show you how simple magic is. Please keep in mind this chapter is not as steps 1, 2, 3 as the others. Magic is very intuitive and personal. Magic can exist with you, can exist without you. Magic exists with or without you believing in it. And at the same time, it can only exist in your life when you acknowledge it. To explain, I must tell you what and how I believe. I have personally never believed in one religious deity, an anthropomorphic, all-seeing God in the form of one organized religion. Instead, I enjoy all of them because as soon as I understood what religion was, I knew in my bones that they were all attempting to achieve the same goal: to congregate, commune, and believe in something bigger. I adore worship and prayer because it's a group of people with a common goal, doing what they believe is helping something else. To me, it's no different than a group of people signing the same birthday card for one person, pitching in to build a fence, or laughing in an audience together. It's a connection for good. I also naturally view things in dualities, spectrums, and extremes. I believe I have been gifted with the ability to see things from multiple perspectives all at once, to play my own devil's advocate. I believe simultaneously that everything is sacred and nothing is sacred all at once. I believe that someone dying in the woods alone who had no family is no different than a famous person dying. And a sunflower seed is the same energy as a galaxy. I believe either everything is offensive or nothing is, and the same way everything matters, that inherently means that nothing does as well. If everything is of equal value, that means it all means nothing too. It cancels out. This, when we speak of a God in my mind, means there can be no anthropomorphic God, no entity that speaks and acts as God. That everything we see, know, and understand of itself is God. That God is everything and nothing. That there is no God and that we are all God. That all deities, religions, gods, and goddesses are all beautiful and accurate as well, because they are simply a new vessel created by God to activate the same energy. It is an infinity sign. We are all nature. Nature is God. We are God. We are making more nature, and we are making more of ourselves. It goes round and round again. It all has meaning, and it all means nothing. It can be viewed as nihilism, but I prefer it to be an optimistic nihilism. I believe that if, quote, nothing matters, then we must do what makes us happy. I believe there is beauty in everything. I have known this to be true for me as young as I can remember. When I found out in my 30s that there was a term for this theology, it's called pantheism if that helps you, I felt like I had witnessed a miracle. And the truth is, I had. A miracle is simply a change in perspective, and so is magic. Magic is being open to a miracle, being open to a change in perspective, being open to opportunities, invitations, and muses. Those are the definitions. I'm not messing with you. It's that simple. When I said that magic exists without you, I meant it. And when I said magic needs you to acknowledge it to exist, I meant that too. Imagine magic as little invisible energy bubbles floating around the world constantly. They're there, but you can't see them unless you acknowledge them because they're invisible. As soon as you acknowledge you're open to the idea of magic, they get a little more opaque. They're still pretty clear, but you can see them a bit if you squint your eyes. When you catch one, you open it and see the treasure inside. You're stunned by how incredible the treasure is, and this declaration of faith is enough to turn the bubbles a bit more opaque. It's kind of like when you believe in Santa and his sleigh flies, or when you clap and Tinkerbell can fly. Every time you open yourself up to the possibility of magic and allow yourself to be taken over by how beautiful it can be, the bubbles get easier to see. Every time you blame magic, or the lack thereof, for not getting what you want, or someone else's behavior, or something going wrong, the bubbles become clearer and harder to catch. Remember that if everything is magic and nothing is magic at the same time, you can always choose to say that everything is magic and to treat every organism as magic. This is not about denying magic. It is about embracing it. It's simply to expand magic to everything, everywhere, instead of qualifying that only some things deserve magic and others don't. Magic comes from the body. Let's think back to the example of going out to play for the day and coming back to receive an exciting email with a work opportunity. Why did this magical action start in the first place? They had to decide to go out to play earlier in the day. But why? It seems simple, right? They were probably overworked and needed to play. Okay, but what does that mean? What is, quote, overworked? What does needed to play mean? I want you to think about that for a moment. We say a lot of nonsense throughout the day. I mean that. Nonsense. Phrases we have popularized and allowed to become common. I want you to explain overworked and needed to play to a 5-year-old. Not just any 5-year-old, your 5-year-old self. Here's how mine might go. Adult Mary. Well, Mary, when you're overworked as an adult, it's because you have to go to your job so many hours a day and you get really tired. Child Mary. Oh, well, that sucks. Why don't you take a nap? Adult. Because they can't. Child. Why not? Adult Mary. Because they have a lot to do and they need money. Child Mary. Why do they need money? Adult Mary. Well, remember when you saw Dad divide up his paycheck for all the bills? They've raised the prices for all the things since then, but they still kind of pay the same amounts in the paychecks. Child Mary. Who is they? Adult Mary. I don't know. It's like the government, like the president? Child Mary. Oh, well, Dad gets off at 5. When do you come home? Adult Mary. I actually work at home. Child Mary. Really? That's cool. So you play with stickers all day? Adult Mary. Actually, I sell stickers. Child Mary. That's so cool. So why are you overworked? Adult Mary. I guess because I need to play. Child Mary. Oh, let's go play. I have chalk outside. Adult Mary. I can't right now. I have to work. Child Mary. Oh, okay, well then I'll go get my stickers and we can work together. My 5-year-old self is a baller. She doesn't care about this stuff. If your 5-year-old self doesn't care about something, or you can't easily explain it to them without getting exasperated, I'm going to bet to you it's not magical. It's just an easy rule of thumb. Terms like overworked are created to describe a state of physicality that honestly should not exist. We should all be listening to our bodies and our inner 5-year-old child's way more often. If you are burned out enough to use the term overworked, please stop if you can. With the exception of being a parent, healthcare, and emergency services, there are very few jobs that can't handle you calling out or an auto reply here and there. However, you'll really only know if you're overworked, tired, hungry, or twirly, that's my word for horny, if you check in with your body. If you are totally checked out from your body, you can go hours holding in your pee without even realizing it. This is why the example of going out to play for the afternoon has to start with the body. To understand why this person was overworked and wanted to compensate with play, had to start with a body check. Any big decision starts with the body, so we must not forget the body ever. Your body includes your mind, emotions, and intuition. Placing your hands on your heart, gut, or center, closing your eyes, breathing in deeply 3 times, and asking yourself, what does my body want more of right now? What does my body want less of right now? What would make this situation even better is imperative to do at least twice a day. You're going to find lots of the time, especially at the beginning of this practice, you simply need to address bodily functions. If you're out of touch with your body, and you have been for a while, you might not realize how long you've gone without physical touch. How twirly you really are, how damn dehydrated you are, how much you're really craving strawberries, how much you need to get out of fluorescent lights, how much you need to wash your face. Whatever answers your body tells you, go take care of it. It's not telling you ideas for the fun of it. It needs some stuff, so please take care of it. If your cat started speaking for the first time and it said, "Mom, I am dying of thirst," you would stop everything and try all the ways you could to get your cat to hydrate. So listen to your body. Your body is magic. The same way magic doesn't need you to exist but is always there, your body is actually always speaking. You're just always surrounded by noise, so it's difficult to hear it. It has messages and requests for you very often, but whether it's street traffic, your boss's emails, your own spiraling thoughts, or the television, you can't hear it. So if you're taking the time to listen, then do something with the information. Don't let your body say, "I need to pee," and you say, "In a minute." What is that? That's an abusive relationship you're creating with yourself. Don't do that. Don't shut yourself up. Once you take care of those bodily needs, you'll create a much safer, stronger foundation and a better relationship with your body. That's when new kinds of messages come in. Some people call these downloads. It doesn't matter what you call them. These are magic messages. They're creative, they're fun, they're incredible. They're the ideas for the new actions, new opportunities, and new perspectives. You're not getting a new opportunity message if your body needs to waste time shouting at you to please feed it and take it to the bathroom, though. So make sure you have a good system where you're being good to your body with the basics. Your body is magic. All messages for magic start within your body. Create some quiet so you can hear them. Then listen in the form of action. Playing. Yes, play had its own chapter in this book, but it's not nearly enough. The more I embody being a merriment maker, the more I deeply understand the power of play, not just in my brain, but in my soul. I can tell you all about the play personalities. I can back up my reasoning for why we need to play with my psychological degrees and all the statistics. And honestly, it's nice to do that, but I am no longer interested in needing to prove play, fun, joy, kindness, love, or merriment to anyone. It speaks for itself, and I have hidden behind numbers to back up my truth for way too long. Play is energy, and it's a magical vibration. I truly believe playing 20 minutes a day will improve your life exponentially more than meditating for 20 minutes will. I don't care if there's a study for it or not. I know this is true for me, and I believe it can be true for you too. Play the way your 5-year-old self would play with you to cheer you up. Play like no one is watching. It's not adult play, it's play. We are all children, children of magic. We are children who might have stopped playing. Merriment is defined as embodying, creating, and spreading joy. And you can't do any of these without your version of play. When you play, you are in flow. When you play, it becomes easier to hear your body's messages. When you play, the magic bubbles become easier to see. Playing creates a portal for magic. Scarcity and desperation. One of the biggest lessons I have had to learn and am still learning around magic is about scarcity, desperation, and manipulating magic. Something I didn't mention is you can fully believe and know those magic bubbles exist, but they still might seem invisible to you. It could be because of resentment and or entitlement. You could see other people believing and invoking magic around you and wonder where your magical bubbles are. This makes the bubbles go back to clear very quickly. It could be because you have a lack of self-worth and or scarcity thinking. You could believe that you are uniquely unspecial, unlucky, and unworthy because your luck around magic will just never come. Or maybe there simply just isn't enough magic to go around. Maybe you think that you have or insist you have bad karma. Again, this makes the bubbles go back to clear very quickly. It could be because of desperation. You could be running around with a net all day long trying to catch bubbles. But it turns out the net is actually sprayed with some sort of repellent. The bubbles dodge the net, and even if you happen to catch one, you're out of breath by the time you do. And you have wasted all day going around trying to catch bubbles when you could have been listening to your body, playing, and taking new magical action steps. It's been a combination of all of these limitations for me at some point in my life, sometimes all at once, and they are so off-putting to magic bubbles. And then you end up with no results, and you'll become even more resentful. This becomes very tricky because magic isn't here to be a faith system for you. Let me say that again. Magic is not here to save you or be the only reason you have hope. In that same way, magic is not here for you to blame when things go poorly. Magic simply is. It is a tool. It is information. It is an energy. It is not good or bad. Magic is not your scapegoat or your savior. We don't look at enough systems, theories, ideologies, educations, tools, machines as neutral and at the operators, us, as the magicians. Astrology is an informative tool for us to understand things if we so choose. And you can have a pattern that leads you to understand what is happening during Mercury retrograde, but that doesn't mean you blame astrology when you get a parking ticket or praise astrology when you win an award at work. Things must be consistent or consistently absent. If you blame it all for something negative, you must also, quote, blame it all for something positive. This is true for all systems. This is why I said at the beginning of this chapter, when beauty exists, we attribute it to magic. When our expectations are shattered, we blame the absence of magic. I want to bring this back to the duality of allowing ourselves to believe in multiple, seemingly conflicting ideologies all at once, as is true with pantheism. What if magic is everything and also nothing? What if beautiful and negative consequences are independent of magic? While at the same time, what if every experience we have, both beautiful and negative consequences, are so unbelievably intertwined with magic that they are essentially the exact same thing? We see one side of the spectrum to say it's okay to live our life knowing magic exists, and also that magic is not to be blamed or praised for it because we don't owe it anything. It is not good or bad. We also see the other side that says magic touches everything we see and experiences so deeply they can't exist without each other. That being said, if it touches everything, then it cancels out, still meaning it's not good or bad. It still is not our scapegoat nor our savior. Do you see how with this theology we kind of end up at the same place through a slightly different lens? Magic is always nothing and everything. Knowing this frees us to act in an informed way towards it, with it, inside it. We are able to become less clingy. Use whatever side of the spectrum helps your brain to free your limitations around scarcity, codependence, desperation, or resentment towards and around magic. I recommend using EFT, tapping, journaling, affirmations, mirror work, and/or meditation on abundance topics, and simply replacing abundance with magic. The ideology here is very similar. The looser your grip with abundance, the more money comes. The looser you cling to magic, the more sparkly your world becomes. Quiet and effective magic. As much as I believe the tools I just listed are very helpful, I want to be honest with you. The deeper and deeper I go with Merriment Making, the more I realize I have been making it more complicated than it needs to be. About halfway through writing this book, I had a total reckoning with self-help and my own rituals. I used to have a 2-hour morning ritual, and it is barely existent now. It's not really out of lack of discipline, it's out of lack of desire and necessity. I journal, tap, and speak affirmations when I need to. I am in touch with my body enough to know when I need a tune-up, so to speak. Tapping every day turned into a subconscious way for me to make sure I was always tapping and on top of fixing myself. And I would much rather use that time to play, create, or rest now. Don't get me wrong, setting an intention every day is really important, and there is a space in between rushing out of bed and running out of the house with a granola bar in my hand and a decadent 2-hour ritual. And that space now mostly looks like rolling over in my bed to look at how beautiful my boyfriend is, saying 3 things I'm thankful for, and wishing Jenny Slate a good day in my head. I just really like her. Wiggling my toes on the rug, lighting a candle. I eat breakfast, take my medicine, stretch a little, plan my day, touch the cats. It's super chill. If I want to tap and journal, I do, but I don't berate myself for not doing it. Recognizing I didn't need to do an elaborate morning ritual was a miracle, by the way. I hope you can see that by now. My body told me I was essentially wasting my time and focusing on fixing myself instead of loving myself. So I listened, and I took a magical action that created more room in my life for more magic. Another realization I've had while writing this book has been how much I want to keep to myself. My level of sharing with the public world is probably at a much higher percentage than most people's, even when it's toned down, but I've always considered myself someone who needed to be loud to be effective. I was a siren for a long time. I would do naked photo shoots with balloons just so I could draw strangers in with the caption and we could talk about mental health issues and civil rights. In all fairness, it was effective, but now I feel and act differently. Sometimes. Most of the time, I am still loud. My clothes are bright, my opinions are bold. I bring way too many suitcases. I have a big body, and my voice carries. I recently realized these choices were actually all a deliberate shield from a young age. Having Tourette's, you have at least 2 vocal tics. These were the most disruptive for me. You can attempt to shield your face with a Lisa Frank folder in Mrs. Johnson's class from facial tics, but that rainbow dolphin collage is not doing very much to cover up those bizarre sounds coming from your throat that you have no explanation for or control over. When I was about 8, I tried out a bunch of different ways to cover up sounds. I tried really loud laughing, raising my voice, some comedy bits. I found it easier to kind of sneak in the noises if I was already being loud with a laugh or something. I don't really know how stealthy this actually was, but it made me feel a bit better. I guess the loudness kind of stuck around forever. I think staying fat has also been a way for me to stay guarded. I feel like I've known that if someone loves me, they love the real me. When I bring too many suitcases on a 3-day vacation, it's so I don't have to, quote, really deal with resting. I have so many loud clothes and flower crowns because I want people to know I'm fun up front. And I don't really have always just something to say, even though I still really want to be friends with you, so I let my clothing speak for me. I do think I'm naturally loud and bright, but I have created a prototype for myself, and any pressure I feel to live up to this prototype and this loudness is self-internalized. It came from a place of insecurity, and as I'm growing, I am shedding. I only need one bag at the beach. I don't care if you see me in dark colors. I would be happy to be thin. I don't force my voice to be loud when it doesn't feel right. I let people come to me instead of forcing interactions. I'm getting better at apologizing. I'm getting better at forgiving. I'm removing the metaphorical makeup I never really needed. I'm remembering who I was. I'm seeing who I am in you. And I'm seeing who you are in me. As I've become a little more quiet here and there, I've seen the most magic in my life. This time, since I've been writing this book, has been the most magical time in my life, hands down. I don't think you need to be quiet to be effective, but I used to think that you could not be quiet and effective, or at least that I couldn't. Now I know it was never about the volume or the brightness. It was about the truth. It was about letting myself be who felt natural. It's not like I was living a lie. It's that there was another part of me that was begging to live too. And I kept whack-a-moling them back down. And now they both play, and I'm so happy for them both. If you're worried you can't make magic without being big, fancy, rich, perfect, or whatever thing you think someone else is doing that you're not, you are wrong. Someone else's magic isn't for you. Your magic is for you. However, if you're trying to get messages from a body who is constantly whack-a-moling back down a part of you who is desperate to come out and play, your messages are not going to be very accurate or well-informed. And if your messages aren't well-informed, the kind of magic you make and experience isn't going to be the best you can have. In fact, it might not be your magic at all. My mama showed me magic. A few months before I started this book, I had the worst breakup of my life, met the man of my dreams, and hurt my knee worse than I had before in my life, all in a month. I watched the police outside my house take away someone who I would later find out didn't even have the same identity I thought I knew for the past 3 years. I accidentally met someone way before I was ready who made me feel like I was moving in slow motion. I slipped and tore my MCL, meniscus, and fractured my tibia. As if my world wasn't shaken up already with what I was doing with my heart, home, and security, I now didn't know how I was even going to get downstairs to the kitchen or take care of my cats. My dad has absolutely always been there for me, but he was also experiencing something and wasn't able to be physically present. My new partner, Matt, could only be there for me 2 days a week. Realistically, I didn't know what I was going to do. I needed help, and I cried and cried as I got on my phone to text what I believed was still my mother's cell phone number. If you have followed me for a long time, you might know I've had a sordid relationship with my mother. I left my childhood home after my parents divorced when I was a teenager. I was angry at both of my parents, but I was able to make excuses as to why my dad did things that angered me, and I was not able to do the same thing with my mom. I didn't speak to her for a very long time, and resentment built up. I only heard stories about her, which made her seem crazy. They reinforced and validated my anger. There were times when I tried to reconnect with her in my 20s, but it always ended up in flames. Looking back, I can see this is because we're so similar. I never took any responsibility for how things ended and insisted it was 100% her fault, which is almost never the case with anything. The parts of me that were activated by her didn't let me see straight, and I wasn't letting myself calm down to even attempt a resolution before storming off. I did that so very not cute block and delete thing again and again with my mother. I've done it with best friends, with lovers, with family. I only ever wanted to teach. I never wanted to be taught. When things got rough, I bounced. But the happiness was fleeting and superficial. There was a hole in me that missed the connections and what could have been. So I texted my mom. I told her I needed help. Please help me. I selfishly reached out in need, like someone who only prays when they're in trouble. I did not deserve her help. I didn't even deserve for her to text me back. But she did, and it changed me. She showed up without question, without fucking question, and she took care of me when I needed it physically. And as I have healed and learned to walk again physically, I have also learned how to walk again with magic. All those crazy stories I heard and believed about my mother made me fear becoming her. I had this idea in my head that my mom used to be good and turned bad. I was worried that something would happen to me like that. I was worried about becoming my mom. And I'll tell you something now, if I turn out like my mom, I'll be lucky. I have been one of the most judgmental people I have ever known. I am so good at loving, but it has been conditional. If I wanted something a certain way and didn't do it, I believed it was an affront against me. It became personal. I focused too much on boundaries as a form of self-love instead of empathy as a form of human acceptance. I had to hurt my leg to get my mom back, and I'd do it again. But I don't want you to have to hurt your leg to get yours back. Having my mom back in my life while simultaneously learning and loving my Matt have been the two best things that have ever happened to me. Both of these people have demonstrated magical, unconditional love to me in a way I didn't know was possible. Matt is one of the purest entities I have ever experienced. You know how a cat loves you? A cat simply is. They are in touch with their body, they do what they need to do and love you in their exact unique way. A way that is so one-on-one piercing you want to cry happy tears. That's how Matt is. Matt is devoted, pure, and all-knowing. He is easy. It does not ever need to be complicated, and it never did. He loved me the night he met me, and he never stopped. Not when I'm a disaster, and not when I couldn't walk a week into our relationship. He sees something different than I see, but he likes what I see too. Watching him exist is my ASMR. Him demonstrating unconditional love to me has been a big test for me. It has challenged where I am stingy with love in a conditional way, and I am grateful for it. And speaking of unconditional love, showing up for someone who has shot you down, talked shit about you publicly, screamed at you, and worse, without a question, is one of the most humbling things I can share. My mom is not just here for my need, to be clear. She's here. We're making up for lost time. We talk and laugh now. I love that I can hear her before she enters a building because she's loudly oohing at something outside. I love how intuitive she is, and I love that I don't have to finish sentences when I don't have the word because she knows. Sometimes she knows because she's my mom, and sometimes she knows because she's a sage. She also taught me how to be a mom. I will never have children to mother, but I have cats, and I consider the people I coach to be my children in the way of teaching, loving, and nourishing. And when I accidentally clipped my cat's nail a little too close for the first time, she bled a little, and I lost my mind. I immediately screamed and cried. I couldn't believe I could have hurt this poor little baby. I didn't stop to deny, get angry, or bargain, blaming it on the nail clipper or how I've always done it this way, like I might have in the past. I simultaneously felt immense grief for the potential pain she was in and a huge surge of protection and energy for solutions. Later that week, I had a remarkably huge day. Out of nowhere, I began sobbing uncontrollably. I punched the pillow and grieved the relationship that ended right before I hurt my knee. I punched, screamed, cried, and spoke until I got it all out. I even vomited. I forgave him. I understood more than anything I was mad at myself than him. I had this wave of understanding that felt like someone had just installed a microchip in my brain. I understood all at once that sometimes shit happens. I had been holding all this resentment from my parents who didn't do enough when I was a sick kid. I felt like it was so obvious I needed help, but I didn't even notice a bleeding cat nail just this week. I've been ignorant to worse things, and if I can do it, so can everyone, including my parents. It was time to forgive them too, for being humans, managing 2 kids, jobs, school, lawns, cars, bills, relationships, and everything else. I understood I have often been the villain in other people's stories. I've been judgmental, callous, and harsh. I've cut the ripcord way too early. I've blamed people for doing the same thing I've also done or would later do. I've forgotten things, not followed through, and been inconsiderate. I've let addiction rule my life. I haven't listened when people just wanted to support me. And I have been unconditional with my love. If I ever did any of these things to you personally, I am truly very sorry. When I stopped running away from unconditional love, I opened myself up to something bigger, more magic. When I stopped blaming my mom for being the villain, being angry by other people's preferences for doing things differently than me, and really remembered that we're all just trying our best, not just in a theoretical sense or with people who aren't just directly influencing me, I opened myself up to more magic. The perspective shifts are magic in and of themselves. Let people in your lives teach you magic. Compassion, empathy, and unconditional love are some of the most magical bubbles you will ever find. From magical to mediocre. One of the biggest goals with Merriment Making has been to transform the mediocre into something magical. I want to help you to not feel bored with the mundane and add some zest to it. That's what a lot of this book has been about. When we celebrate play and add pleasure to our daily lives, we get that succulent effect we've been striving for. Truth be told, coming up with ways to make your trip to the grocery store silly, playful, and fun is a great talent of mine, and I'll probably never stop making lists or coming up with ideas. However, I want to introduce to you a potentially radical notion. Does the grocery store trip actually need zest? Can the grocery store be magical on its own? I'm obviously not saying to not dance in the aisles or to stop organizing your carts by rainbow color. I'm not saying there's no place for fun, silliness, and merriment making in the grocery store. Don't worry, I haven't totally lost my mind. I'm proposing a cognitive shift where we remove mediocre from our vocabulary, and not just because it's difficult to spell. What makes something mediocre? It's defined as being of regular quality or just not being that good. So we've decided it's ordinary or we just kind of don't like it. All right, well, for someone, helicopter shopping is mediocre by definition then, right? It's very subjective based on your lifestyle and routines. What's mediocre to one person is not to another. We know our motivation thrives with mixing things up. We know silliness, fun, and play are core principles for how to mix things up. What I'm suggesting is we cease to look at what needs to be mixed up as standard. We have almost been brainwashed to believe that any errands, chores, and work have to suck the life out of us. If we go into the activity with the decision made up in our minds that it's going to suck, then it's going to suck. It's going to get old and mediocre quicker than you can spell check mediocre. I'm not crazy. Like, it should be spelled C-O-R-E, right? Honestly. Let's apply pantheism to mediocrity. Everything is mediocre simultaneously, and nothing is mediocre. We also know everything is magic and nothing is. So look at this however helps your brain. The whole point is that it cancels everything out, so we stop qualifying and ranking things because we've been programmed to do so. It's not to take away the power of your life purpose or passion. It's not to dismantle the beauty of your preferences. It's not to make everything beige. It's to know that no matter what room you find yourself in, you'll be content. If everything is uncomfortable, then everywhere is also comfortable. You can find happiness in any corner of the world because you'll find the value in every microcosm. It's liberating. With this in mind, release mediocrity from your brain. Your life can't be mediocre, nor can any of the activities inside of it. Zest isn't here to cure mediocrity. It's here to be zest. Why merriment is magic. Merriment making is magic. The principles, the theories, and in action. You, as a merriment maker, are magic. Merriment making is something I created, or simply observed, recognized, and named. The existence of merriment making implies magic. One does not exist without the other. I live for words and thought processes. I do. And at the same time, I reject all labels. Whether you believe in the stars, a sacred text, or the ability to shift perspective, this is all magic. When you embody, create, and spread joy, this is magic. We are all merriment makers. Merriment makers are one with magic. Magic is merriment making. Merriment making is magic. If I am one, I am both. If I am both, I have succeeded. If you are one, you are both. If you are both, you have succeeded. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed listening to this chapter, I bet you are a merriment maker in your soul. I would love to have you come take part in the entire experience of the signature program that accompanies this book. You can leave a comment and tell me what you thought. If you're on YouTube, share a review, or just come over to the page and check it out at uncustomary.org/merriment-making. I also offer many other ways to get started making magic through merriment making, such as my membership group, the Merriment Makers, at uncustomary.org/membership, which includes Operation Merriment as part of your subscription. Operation Merriment is free to try, and it is weekly merriment missions that allow you to get down and dirty into tangibility with easy supplies, spread joy, and become your own good news. Thank you again for listening. I love you, Merriment Maker.